Hey y'all, I'm sure you missed me. So today's read aloud is Mars, your Mars article for Group C. So I want you to make sure that your article says Group C. If it does not, go back and check the read aloud for your group, okay? So again, I want you to read along with me. I'm going to have to go through the whole spiel again, but remember it's helpful. So today, let's read the article title. It says, heard any good jokes lately? A long flight to Mars could use a few. Okay, so this title is telling me that they're going to make some kind of connection between Mars and between jokes. I wonder why. Let's just look at the picture, though. I mean, let's think about Mars right now. You don't have to know much about Mars. Let's just look at the picture. If this is what your backyard looked like, let's ignore the spaceship. That would be pretty cool if that landed. Looks pretty bland and boring and depressing. I don't know about you guys, okay? I wonder what comedians or jokes could do with that. Okay, so let's go ahead and start down here. Remember in our introduction, looking for that main idea. So read along with me. It says, space trips can be scary. Having someone on the crew who makes everyone laugh can be important. The first trip to Mars might need someone funny. Scientists have studied it, and they found that the success of a flight to Mars might depend on having a class clown. Studies show that a funny person can unite teams in hard times. Jeffrey Johnson is a scientist at the University of Florida. These are people that have the ability to pull everyone together. Okay, so let's think about our introduction. They talked about clowns. Those are funny people. Class clowns specifically, and they mentioned Mars and how they come together. So what about them? Is this just about class clowns and Mars, or what about them makes the connection? And it makes a specific connection about uniting people. So I want you to look through, I gave you a clue there, I want you to look through this introduction. Which sentence talks about uniting people on Mars with, as they mentioned, jokes or class clowns? Which one of these sentences shows that, okay? All right, so that's going to be your main idea. Let's go ahead on our first subtitle. It says, trying not to get on each other's nerves. Astronauts live in small spaces with other people. They would have to exist in a tight space for a long time to go to Mars. That can make people feel nervous, Johnson said. Pause for a second. Now, I know you're not locked in a cabinet. If you are, please message me on Remind. I'll come help you. But we're kind of stuck, aren't we? You're stuck with family, or maybe you have family friends that live with you, or aunt or uncle, or brothers, sisters, cousins, grandparents. I can only imagine. Okay, guys, think about that. You're sitting there bored, twiddling your thumbs, but I'm sure you've had plenty of moments where you're just like on the edge of desperation for something entertaining, and then someone makes a joke, or you guys remember something from way back when and you all laugh about it, okay? That always just kind of eases the mood, right? I've had plenty of those moments here at home, and I tell you what, when those jokes are made and we start laughing, it just makes everybody feel better. So let's go on to that next page and let's get more information on that connection. Top, it says, it is important to have someone who can help everyone get along and get back to Earth safely, he said. Johnson spent 4 years studying crews in Antarctica. He saw that people who were clowns, leaders, buddies, and others were important for teams. He found the same mixes worked for teams from the United States, Russia, China, and other countries. If you have the right mix, the group does very well, he said. If you do not, the group does very badly, Johnson said. Now think about it. It even happens in your group of friends. It happens in your community with your neighbors. You generally have that group that you do get along with, those people you know that you get along well with and that you can relate to. And then there are some people that we just run into in life that we just don't get along with. Could you imagine being stuck with them right now? Or maybe you are, I don't know. But you got to think about how tough it is for them. And we kind of relate to how they're feeling, right? And not to mention, Mars is also like an 8-month trip from here. So it's a long time. You'd want somebody funny, wouldn't you? Yeah, I think so. So this section is just telling us about how it's important to have a good mix so that you can survive that trip to and from. That's a long time. And I guarantee you in space, they do not have Snapchat or TikTok, okay? Big time. All right, so make sure you find a supporting detail. Where does it talk about the issue, not an issue, but the need for entertainment or a comedian on ship to Mars. So let's go to our next section. Setting in for a long space flight. NASA is the U.S. Space Agency. It is planning a trip to Mars with a crew as early as 2033. The Russian and Chinese space agencies have proposed trips starting in 2040. Private companies such as SpaceX also want to take people to the planet. A trip to Mars is not easy, however. The red planet is about 140 million miles from Earth. Sometimes the two planets are closer to each other. Sometimes they are farther apart, depending on their paths around the sun. Okay, so right now we're just talking distance. We're talking about the plans. Let's keep reading. It takes about 8 months to go from Earth to Mars. The distance is expected to be hard on people in the crew. It will also be difficult for astronauts to talk to people back on Earth. They will have to wait on a delay to hear back from NASA. If there is an emergency, the crew will have to figure it out by themselves. Okay, so this talks about the plan. It talks about how long it takes there. But one of the things they touched on in that last paragraph in this section was the difficulty. And as we talked before, being stuck with your family right now is difficult. And they can't necessarily talk back to people on Earth. There's a big delay just to hear back from NASA, who makes sure they get there and back and safe, right? So could you imagine? You can't get on your cell phone and text and call, your video chat your friends, or get on social media to talk to your friends to make you smile or laugh. They don't have that. So what do they need? What is this article telling us they need? You already know that. So I wouldn't focus up here on the plan. I'd focus more on how does the difficulty relate to the need for a jokester, okay? Find your supporting sentence. Next subtitle. It says, a little laughter can't hurt. Johnson is working with NASA to see if clowns and other characters are important for long space trips. He has watched 4 groups of astronauts who spent 30 to 60 days in the Human Exploration Research Analog. It is set up to be like space. It is in Houston, Texas. Johnson spoke at a science meeting in Washington, D.C. He said NASA wants to see if people and groups act similarly in places like space. So far, it looks like they do, he said. He also has studied fishers in Alaska. He has found that clowns were willing to be part of jokes and pranks. In Antarctica, one funny person was important for joining scientists and other groups together. Where did they tell you? Where did they tell you that we need funny people to go to Mars? Underline it. Highlight it. Next section. Helping to keep stress low. Ronald Amundsen was an explorer. He saw the need for someone to act like a clown, Johnson said. In 1910, Amundsen picked a jolly cook, Adolf Lindstrom, for his trip to the South Pole. He knew that Lindstrom's fun outlook would help with homesickness and the long, cold nights. Amundsen wrote in his diary that Lindstrom had provided more valuable services to the trip than anyone else. I just want to pause real quick. The names Amundsen and Lindstrom, even I had to pause on them for a second, and I've told you guys this in the past. The name of someone does not change your understanding of the text. So if you mispronunciate it a little bit, that's okay. Depends on the origin of the name. It could be German, it could be English, it could be Russian. We don't know, unless they tell us, of course. But even if you don't know that area and don't know those pronunciations well, it doesn't change the meaning of the text, okay? Do your best. Okay, so back to the topic. Again, they're giving you examples of other situations in which it was useful to have that comedian as a part of the group to keep everyone together. So you can find a supporting detail real quick there. Down here it says Johnson said people on the trip viewed Lindstrom as a great entertainer who lifted spirits over the long winter. He joined people together. Ooh, a long winter. just like a long trip to Mars. Okay, except for it's probably hot there. Up here on the last page it says, one other polar trip was very different, Johnson said. He was talking about British explorer Robert Falcon Scott. The explorer died with his crew on a trip to the South Pole. The crew did not work as a team, Johnson said. As Lindstrom showed, there is more to the job than making people laugh. Being funny won't be enough to land somebody the job, Johnson said. Okay, so yes, of course, we need people who can do more than just be funny on their way to Mars. Like, they probably need to know how to do operations and land properly and safely. Way beyond my knowledge. However, the whole purpose of this, not porpoise, we're not talking about dolphins, we're talking about the purpose, the whole purpose of this text is to show that we do need somebody who can lift spirits, whether they're a class clown, they're an entertainer, but that type of personality helps bring people together. So that example of the explorer dying, even though he died and it's not talking about having a positive person, an entertainer or a jokester on the spaceship, they're giving an example of how it doesn't work if you don't have someone to help unite that team. Okay? So, plenty of areas and all those subtitles for you to find supporting details too.